Klinton suffered from worsening psycho-emotional problems, including uncontrollable fits of anger, aggression, and excessive cheerfulness. Klinton was prescribed a daily course of powerful tranquilizers.
At the end of this video, you will hear two very smart politicians making predictions about what can and cannot happen as a result of the avalanche of information that comes to us from the Trump administration. Many people like Tulsi, Hubbard, and others, many of you write, nothing will be done to them anyway. No one will go to jail. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I absolutely love pessimists. They manage to look at a glass of water and only see that it's not filled to the brim. That's usually a sign of poor digestion or an excess of bile in the body. Sometimes, by the way, if this is combined with unreasonable resentment towards everyone, you should urgently ask your doctor about the registry office. And for many people, both issues go away. And for you yourself and for the people around you, it becomes easier to live in this world. We
often see this, Ainsley. We see a story where someone commits a crime and nothing happens to them. The Department of Justice will check if this meets the standard.
According to her, she has new evidence pointing to Barack Obama, but his representatives deny his involvement. Andy McCarthy believes that he was an accomplice, but says that he cannot be prosecuted. Listen.
There is no doubt that Obama was neck-deep as an accomplice in what I believe was the dirtiest political trick in American history. The question in the narrow sense is there any crime here? The scandal is that they had a legitimate reason to investigate Russian interference in the election. But they used it as a pretext to essentially investigate Trump, spy on his presidency, and try to make him an ineffective president. That's why it's a terrible political dirty trick. The question is, again, Brian, can this be prosecuted criminally? And I just don't see it.
Here's a professional opinion that the Democrats have covered up their crime or the crime of Yah with a fig leaf, and formally they can't be prosecuted for it.
Director of National Intelligence Kleppers, assistant to the Director of National Intelligence Klepper, sent an email to the intelligence community with the subject of the President's directive on Russian interference in the elections, instructing the Director of National Intelligence Leadership to prepare a new assessment at the President's request. The report released today by the House Intelligence Committee reveals, quote, unlike a typical intelligence community analysis, this intelligence community assessment was a high-profile product commissioned by President Obama.
And of course, the question arises, will anyone be held accountable? Now, remember Obama's reaction yesterday. He brushed off Trump's accusations of treason, saying that everyone, including Marco Rubio, who was then on the Senate Intelligence Committee, believed that Russia tried to influence the election. Director Gabbard also commented on this.
I'm not asking you to take my word for it. I'm asking you, members of the media, to do honest journalism and for Americans to look at the documents we've published themselves. Right now, it's almost 200 pages, containing numerous references. There are many examples, including comments made by high-ranking intelligence officials, some of whom still work in these agencies, and who confirm the conclusions we've reached. That President Obama ordered the intelligence community assessment to promote this fabricated false narrative, which ultimately led to a years-long coup attempt aimed at undermining the presidency of Donald Trump.
The point is, the alleged crime here was not claiming that Russia wanted to influence the election. It was about the order to prepare a new intelligence assessment based on a fake dossier in order to undermine Trump's presidency from day one. This went on for years, and as a result, many Americans during the 2020 election cycle believed that, essentially, it was Putin who brought Trump to power. So if you voted for Trump's re-election, you were supposedly voting for Putin.
And Laura Ingraham claims that there are grounds for prosecution. As far as I remember, she's a lawyer by education, that the case was referred to the prosecutor's office for a reason.
And Obama will, of course, dispute all of this. He'll say that he was just trying to get to the truth. And Trump and his supporters are trying to distract attention from Epstein with a new conspiracy theory, which of course the press is already helping with.
The press is compromised, so they'll be foaming at the mouth trying to prove that everything Tulsi says is deception and lies. The press made things up, played along, covered things up, manipulated, and continues to do the same, hiding, for example, that Hillary is mentally ill. At the very same time, in the internal documents of the Democratic Party that were hacked by the Russians, they gave a very interesting diagnosis: manic depressive psychosis.
Today we learned that during the campaign, Director of National Intelligence Gabbard stated that the Russian intelligence agency had information that Hillary had serious mental health issues.
There were high-level emails within the Democratic National Committee that contained evidence of Hillary's psycho-emotional problems, uncontrollable outbursts of anger, aggression, and excessive cheerfulness. It was also claimed that Secretary of State Klinton took strong tranquilizers daily.
We contacted Hillary Clinton's official office directly to obtain information.
We all thought her problem was alcoholism, but it turns out she's mentally ill. Hillary was supposed to become the President of the United States by the will of the Democratic Party and the globalists, with a nuclear button under her pillow, not a reset button with Lavrov, but a nuclear one. Hillary Biden. Good, stable guarantors of danger for the country and the world. Yes, I didn't misspeak. Guarantors of danger, gentlemen. What I said tirelessly, relentlessly. To be a Democrat today, you have to be either an idiot or a scoundrel. That turned out to be wrong, or rather inaccurate, incomplete to be precise. You could also be mentally ill. So now I will claim that those who believe in the Democratic Party and repeat what they and the press they've bought naturally say, they're either A, bastards, B, idiots, or mentally ill. And since at least a third of the population of the United States easily falls into these three categories, there you have the base of the Democratic Party. By the way, I'm actually surprised there are so few of them.
Senator Ted Cruz from the great state of Texas is joining us to discuss all of this. Senator, will we see anyone actually held accountable in this situation?
Cruz is a brilliant lawyer, a brilliant speaker, a brilliant senator, a legal scholar, and his opinion is always worth listening to.
Listen, I hope and pray that will be the case, and I hope the Department of Justice will conduct a full investigation into this matter. What is important, and what did Tulsi Gabbard make public? It's not that someone was making accusations that Putin wanted Trump to win, but that they were lying and knew they were lying. That's what's explosive here. Their repeated testimonies to Congress were false if you look at the facts that Tulsi presented. August 31st, 2016. A Department of Homeland Security official informs former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper that there are no signs of a Russian threat aimed at directly interfering with vote counting. That's what they were saying in August 2016 and on September 2nd, 2016. The FBI stated that they are uncomfortable implying that they have definitive information that Russia is actually intending to disrupt our elections. On September 9th, the intelligence community concluded that Russia probably was not trying to influence the elections using cyber means. On September 12th, the same thing. December 7th, already after the elections. Here are the talking points written by Clapper. Foreign adversaries did not use cyber attacks on election infrastructure to change the outcome of the United States presidential election. December 8, Obama's daily presidential briefing. Here's what it said. We assess that Russian and criminal actors did not affect the results of the recent United States elections through malicious cyber activities against election infrastructure. So up until December 8, again and again and again, they say, no Russia, no Russia, no Russia. And then comes December 9.
Let's make it clear. A month after Trump won and Obama is still in office, naturally all 17 or 18 maybe American intelligence agencies report to the president. In Klaber's general report, it says that neither Russia nor anyone else influenced the elections that took place a month ago. No one, not at all.
December 9th, meeting with Director of National Intelligence, Director Klaper. On December 9th, there's a meeting with Director of National Intelligence Klaper, National Security Advisor Susan Rice, Secretary of State John Kerry, and Deputy FBI Director McCabe, at which they completely changed their position. And everyone says Russia, Russia, Russia. That's why Trump was elected. And I'll tell you, that meeting was on December 9th. Franklin Roosevelt once said that December 7th is a date which will live in infamy. Well, December 9th should also become a date which will live in infamy, because it was at this moment that high-ranking members of the government decided to lie to the American people and sabotage President Donald.
It's not about the intelligence officials deciding to check. That's their duty, that's their job. But the point is that they lied to Congress, lied under oath, lied to the public, and that's why everything that happened, happened. And that's it seems. For that, it seems some of them could be prosecuted. Will it be possible to imprison Obama? I don't know, I don't think so, but we will expose their lying party. We will expose them so much that they will either split up or lose influence and quite possibly soon give way to some other second pro-capitalist party.
Back in 2018, former Director of National Intelligence Klepper admitted something about Obama. Watch this.
If it weren't for President Obama, we might not have conducted that intelligence community assessment that we did, which started a whole chain of events that are still unfolding, in particular Special Counsel Mueller's investigation. President Obama is responsible for this, and he was the one who tasked us with conducting that intelligence community assessment. From the very beginning.
He didn't admit that it was all a lie, but he said it was Obama. This was after the entire intelligence community, as you read, made their assessments, which are constantly changing. You know, they're always assessments. They can never be final conclusions. But based on Obama's statement yesterday, there are signs that Russia is still being dishonest.
They abruptly reversed their stance, contradicting months of statements.
Wasn't Obama's statement yesterday a lie when he said that Russia tried? Wasn't that indicated in the intelligence assessments?
No, that wasn't indicated. But listen, Barack Obama is extremely biased, and the people around him, they're real radicals. John Brennan, who was the head of the CIA, do you know who he voted for? In 1976, he voted for Gus Hall. Gus Hall was the Communist Party's candidate for president. Because John Brennan said that Jimmy Carter, who was running in 76, wasn't liberal enough for John Brennan. He wanted a communist. And by the way, he admitted it himself. He voted for a communist. He wanted a communist to be president of the United States. Well, if you fast forward to Barack Obama, his wish came true. And understand these party officials have such contempt for the American people. What was the Russian hoax all about? It was aimed at undermining democracy. They were angry at the voters for choosing Trump.
They want to punish him?
This is exactly the same feeling that led last year to the legal campaign to bring 4 charges against Donald Trump. Ultimately, it wasn't about their hatred for Trump. It was about contempt for the voters. They aimed to stop Americans from re-electing President Trump. And this contempt for the voters is clearly shown in their willingness to lie to Congress and the American people.
That's right, 100% correct. As Trump said, through me they are fighting you. Through me they are fighting you. And now let's listen to the lawyer. So, what has already started happening?
This is a statement from former President Barack Obama, published by the Office of Former President Obama. So he's even keeping himself one step aside. Out of respect for the institution of the presidency, our office usually does not respond. The response is a constant stream of nonsense and disinformation coming from this White House. But these claims are so outrageous that they deserve a response. These strange accusations are ridiculous and are a weak attempt to distract attention. Nothing in the document published last week refutes the widely accepted conclusion. Here we go. Listen carefully to this part because this is where the word games begin. That's right. The widely accepted conclusion is that Russia tried to influence the 2016 presidential election but was not able to successfully manipulate the votes. These conclusions were confirmed in a report by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee in 2020, led by then-Chairman Mark Rubio.
That is, well, the sun sets in the west, so the scales at the market are rigged. Or, for example, if 2 + 5 = 7, then it logically follows that humans evolved from apes. Well, roughly speaking, the logic they shove in there is about at that level.
President Obama would have been better off if he hadn't made that statement at all. Because it's obvious that he's trying to cover himself and say, like, there's nothing new here, nothing to see.
And all these people were asking him to make a statement.
Right. But he says that there is nothing in the document published last week that contradicts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia tried to influence the presidential election of the year 2016. But Tulsi is not claiming that. Tulsi refers to these documents to show that this was the assessment of the intelligence community, and that up until the election itself, it was believed that Russia was trying to influence it with its bot armies. But at the same time, it had no ability to manipulate the votes. That was the assessment of the intelligence community all this time. And then after President Trump was elected, President Obama convened a meeting at the White House and they changed the version of events. Suddenly, it turned out that it was no longer about Russia trying to sow discord in America and weaken the United States, but about the fact that they were trying to ensure the election of President Trump.
That's right. And I think right now all the Democratic Party's lawyers are scrambling, coming up with excuses. Oh, good times are starting for the Democratic Party's lawyers. How much money will they make? The Democratic Party has taken a lot from us. Besides that, blackmail will start. Blackmailing everyone they have leverage on from both parties because they urgently need to put pressure on everyone. And how does the United States, under the leadership of the Democrats, act when it comes to elections in other countries, including allied countries?
The Biden administration is funding NGOs to try to influence Israel's elections.
By the way, the United States spent $1 billion trying to overthrow Netanyahu, but it didn't work. Even here, they turned out to be impotent.
And here's what was released today. Did Tulsi Gabbard declassify it, or did President Trump have the authority to declassify it? But this declassified report from the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence was published. The House Intelligence Committee prepared a report on the 2016 election and the intelligence information underlying it. This committee can go into the sensitive compartmented information facility. They can review all of this when they prepare their report as part of their oversight function over the executive branch. This is part of the Constitution, what they are supposed to do. They did it, but it was a classified report because it involved secret intelligence information, systems and methods, all sources and methods, all the things we usually don't see. Now they've declassified it. And that's really interesting. It's right at the beginning of this report, according to the intelligence community's assessment and what they see. They point to some things that were in the report and would fit the proper analytical approach and would be consistent with what the intelligence was telling them. Here are 3 things that were consistent with the intelligence data. But what changed? The first, President Putin ordered conventional and cyber influence operations, specifically by leaking politically sensitive emails obtained from hacking computers. That's number 1. Like you said, Logan, we know this really happened. We know there were armies of bots, that there was a cyber influence campaign. It didn't change votes. It was an attempt to sow discord. Second, the main motives of Putin in these operations were to undermine trust in the democratic process in the United States and to weaken, as the Russians believed, the inevitable Clinton presidency. That's what the intelligence community was gathering. That means they thought Clinton would win. They wanted Russia to be stronger than America, so they were already trying to weaken America during the election process. Third, here's the point. That's precisely why Chairman Chuck Grassley from Iowa The senator published the fully declassified Horowitz report, an appendix to his report on the email investigation, which basically said that the FBI did nothing. They simply didn't interfere. They had these flash drives, but they didn't even look at what was on them. Thirdly, Putin refrained from leaking some compromising materials that could have been used against the administration after the election.
Klinton, yes. So think about that. All right, let's stop on this topic and this episode. So you're saying that they could have had potentially compromising information, right? Yes, for Hillary Clinton's election campaign. And they decided not to disclose this information, assuming that she would win, and that they would need some theoretical arguments and a bit of blackmail. They, again, if they were really looking, let's
figure it out. The Federal Security Service had information that Hillary was mentally ill and that she was on heavy drugs. If Putin wanted Trump, he would have brought this to light, leaked it. Yes, there are many ways to do that. But Putin was sure that, well, just like everyone else here in America, that Hillary was going to win, and he didn't even think about Trump. He was waiting for the elections to have material to blackmail Hillary or to stabilize the United States, whose president would be suffering from severe mental illness and drug addiction. President Trump, to win, you would have to
win the presidential election against Trump, you would put all your efforts into it.
That's right. So what does that tell you? That tells you that Putin thought I had leverage over the president of the United States. If she wins, it will significantly impact the sanctions negotiations. We can always ask, you don't want this made public, right? And if they actually do it, then America will be paralyzed because impeachment and things like that will start. That was Russia's goal, to weaken the United States and strengthen Russia.
Which once again proves that it wasn't Trump they wanted in the Kremlin. But what about the champagne, you might ask, that they went to drink for Trump? Well, that's a normal propaganda and spy tactic to smear your opponent by pretending you want them to be elected.
So the Steele dossier was a work. So the Steele dossier was a working product paid for by the Clinton campaign. You pay for dirt on your opponents, you hire people to find compromising material on your political rival that you can use. That's how this world works. They paid former British spy Christopher Steele to create this dossier. They got the dossier. And by the way, the Clinton campaign never really used it because it was too unbelievable. And then when they started noticing the unbelievable, meaning not trustworthy. That's the whole point of the word unbelievable. When you say, dude, that's unbelievable, you get it? We're using the word wrong. It was not trustworthy, but they still paid that guy for it. And then suddenly it gets into the intelligence community where everyone at the CIA, all the analysts were saying, this isn't trustworthy, we shouldn't use it. They only started using it to try to smear Trump after he won. And by the way, the CIA told Brennan, don't use this working material. And that's a quote that Tulsi published. He said he agreed that it doesn't meet intelligence standards. Yeah, he said that, but isn't it true? It just feels right. He just radiates energy. Yeah, just working on the Steele dossier. That's true, man.
When reading it, everything seems right. You agree with what's being said.
Got it. It seemed true to Brenner. He felt it was true that Trump came to Moscow, found a group of prostitutes in a hotel or maybe in the Kremlin. By the way, they hang around both places. He brought them to his room and asked them, climbing onto the bed where he was supposed to sleep and where Barack and Michelle had slept before, to write in it. And that two girls, I think two, and they gladly did it. Brad Riabami felt that it seemed true to him. In general, we have a strange system of governance, and our justice system is strange too. Stirring up confusion is usually the task of those who are planning to cheat. For example, the ban on asking for documents from those who come to vote is usually supported by those who are planning to cheat in the elections. Okay, moving towards the end, let's listen to Bill Araldi. He is a serious analyst and a balanced journalist. He is in the conservative camp. He has personal relationships with Trump and half of the Senate, but he doesn't let that color his reporting. He is quite accurate in his assessments and predictions.
The accusations made against John Brennan, former CIA director under the Barack Obama administration, are very serious. I believe that Mr. Brennan will be charged by the federal government. I say, here's what is said about Brennan in this report. Quote, the CIA director ordered the publication of 15 reports after the election containing previously collected but unpublished intelligence information, 3 of which were of low quality. They contained vague information of questionable origin, potentially biased or implausible. And it was these that became the main sources for the intelligence community's assessment that Putin preferred Trump. Klinton, the intelligence community's assessment, presented these reports as reliable, without mentioning their serious internal flaws. This was happening under the leadership of John Brennan. This is election fraud.
Walsh thinks that Bradnan has a serious one.
James Comey, who became FBI director in 2013 under Obama, persuaded Trump to retain him in the role. It was crazy, but Trump did it anyway and then fired him in 2017, so Comey was there for 4 years. Now the CIA and FBI don't cooperate. So I don't blame Comey for not knowing what Brennan was up to. But Comey himself had information that disproved many of these accusations. That Putin interfered in the elections. The FBI never made it public. It didn't do anything about it. Now, Comey is not mentioned by name in the report. So I don't think the federal government will press charges against him. But here's what his deputy, Andre McCabe, said on, I believe it was on, no, this is a full screen quote. According to Andre McCabe, the deputy director of the FBI, this is what he told the investigative committee. Understood. Congressman Chris Stewart from Utah asked him, name the most compromising thing from the dossier that you were able to confirm as true. The strongest piece of evidence. Mr. McCabe, sir, I can't answer that question right now. End of quote. McCabe says that the FBI had no information at all. None. So, if that's true, and Brennan was spreading this fake narrative, the FBI had a duty to come out and refute it. I don't know if that's enough to press charges. KOMI.
KOMI, from Bill's point of view, can stay out of it unless new evidence, documents, or testimony comes up.
The chairman of the committee that did the investigation, the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, at that time was Congressman Adam Schiff from California. Now, he is Senator Schiff. He lied about it, by my count, about 50 times. 50, got it. Here's what he said on Margaret Brennan's show on April 5th, 2018. Let's go.
Can you agree that so far no evidence has been presented of collusion, coordination, or conspiracy between Trump's company and Russia?
I disagree completely. I think there's ample surface-level evidence of collusion or conspiracy.
That was not true, and his own report confirmed that.
I see.
His own report confirmed that it's not true.
Schiff lied.
What is supposed to happen?
Now the FBI
must reinterrogate Adam Schiff in his office in the Senate. Now he has been pardoned by President Biden. I'm not even sure if Biden knows he pardoned him, but he has been pardoned. But this does not apply to crimes committed after the pardon. If Schiff lies to the FBI now, and that's a big deal, I would send agents there as soon as tomorrow and ask, why did you say that knowing it's not true? Where is your evidence? Schiff would have to explain why he lied so many times. You just take each of his lies and I can give you 50 such cases. And if he lies to FBI agents, then he will be charged with committing a criminal offense. If he tells the truth, other people will be implicated as well. Shifu will have to say, well, so-and-so told me this, this person gave me that. That's the key point of the entire story. Shifu. Honestly, I would put as much pressure on him as possible. Because you can't allow any undermining
Of the presidential elections?
This is unacceptable. And in my opinion, the CIA director tried to do this and will be held accountable.
Here, I don't quite agree with Bill. For some reason, he thinks you can put pressure on Schiff and he'll crack, he'll start talking, as we say. But I don't understand, maybe I just don't get it. Why would Schiff be afraid of an FBI interrogation or the consequences? He can just answer, I don't remember, I don't know, oh, I forgot, and so on.
So there is an unnamed advisor to Vladimir Putin whom the committee had access to. His name was removed during the declassification of Tulsi Gabbard because they don't want him to be killed. But Putin will know who it is. Here is a quote from the report. Putin's duplicity towards both candidates is further confirmed. The name is hidden and omitted in the intelligence community's assessments. That is, Brennan did not include this person's testimony in the report. He did not speak positively about Trump. Instead, he expressed pessimism that neither Trump nor Clinton would be able to fix the strained relations with Russia. So Vladimir Putin didn't say, I want Trump to be
Elected. He
didn't care. I believe that
It's true.
he knew that it didn't matter to him whether it was Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. Now, with Trump and Biden, it actually mattered. He wanted Biden to win because then he could invade Ukraine. Putin and Biden won in 2020, all right? And finally, far-right circles are shouting about Barack Obama. And it seems that President Trump also mentioned that he was going to be arrested or charged or something like that. That is not going to happen. Sorry, but I have to tell you the truth. I know that some of you don't like President Obama, and you think he's deeply involved in this whole election fraud conspiracy. I understand that. In this report, nothing is said about Obama. Of course, it's hard to believe that Obama didn't know what his CIA director Brennan was doing and what Comey was up to. He should have known, but did he know that they were falsifying data? That's hard to prove. Besides, he has executive privilege, just like Trump. So he can say, listen, I'm not going to tell you anything. And according to our Constitution, he's not required to do so. So don't expect that.
As I already told you, I can't believe that Obama will end up in jail. Only if his accomplices start ratting him out, and even then, it's doubtful. But the case of rigging impeachments, escalating tensions with Russia, and bringing America almost to the brink of civil war will not go unpunished for the Democratic Party. That's why, ladies and gentlemen, here's the cherry on top for you.
Between Mamdani, the new radical Muslim candidate for mayor of Minneapolis, and Hunter. Well, honestly, for Republicans, every day is like Christmas. I mean, new gifts keep appearing that are hard to even imagine. For me, after many years in this field, this is the most astonishing collapse of a party in my entire life. These people are torn between those who timidly hide. That's the Schumer wing and the crazies. And right now, the party has exactly these two wings. And those who timidly hide are afraid of the crazies.
You should never be afraid of madness. Madness just needs to be dealt with immediately. History shows that's exactly how you should handle madness. I know this from personal experience.
Listen, do you have the courage to stand up against the unification of AOSI and Mamdani and another 700 truly irrational leftists? But I guarantee that Chuck Schumer doesn't. Actually, I think Schumer probably won't even run next year because he's so afraid that AOSI will beat him in the primaries. I mean, right now we're seeing a completely different Democratic Party, unlike any we've seen before. And judging by the polls we're conducting at the New Majority of America project, they're just racing straight toward a cliff. Give them an issue supported by 15% of the population. They gather, celebrate, support it, and have absolutely no idea that the other 85% of the country thinks they're crazy.
And that's without all the new sensational documents and revelations. Because the people the Democrats are putting into power now, the ones they want to follow, are anti-Semites, anti-Americans. I don't even know how to put it. They're definitely anti-free market, anti-freedom in general. So what are they for? They're for taking away and redistributing and then tightening the screws and becoming Cambodia or Venezuela and living happily behind thick walls under the protection, of course, of the National Guard. And the Democratic youth, maybe they'll see something differently, but they don't see anything at all. Students, young specialists, humanities graduates, graduates of all sorts of professions like the struggle of African women in the 11th century for sexual equality or something like that. They see the senile Baden, they see Hillary, who's suffering from psychosis, well, at least until today. They knew she was an alcoholic, something like that, a raving Sumerian, dried up from hatred and anger, Nancy Pelosi. Naturally, they want to open the window because of the stifling smell of decay. And on the other side, young, spirited Komsomol members with joyful shouts, "The rich have a lot of money, we will take it from them, and we will all be very, very, very happy." They're young, not very experienced. I don't even want to say not very smart. It's just that they've been taught not to think critically, not to ask questions like, what happens next? That's why they don't ask, what happens next? Because if they ever ask themselves that question, they'll suddenly find out what will happen next. Soup with a cat. Nothing else. Soup with a cat?
Goodbye.